Welcome to a new episode of Road Horror Stories. Today, we bring you a story that will make you tremble. Imagine being alone in the middle of the night, on a highway heading to Mexico, and picking up a mysterious young woman. But who is she really? Discover the terrifying truth in this horror story. Let's begin. On a dark and clear night, on a lonely highway that connected the United States with Mexico, Berny, a veteran trucker with years of experience on the road, was cruising the long, deserted miles. It was 1:20 in the morning, and the road stretched endlessly before him. The truck roared like a beast in the twilight, and Bernie's only companion was the monotonous hum of the tires on the asphalt. The night was silent, broken only by the echo of his own breathing and the occasional hum of the radio playing a sad tune. Bernie was a quiet man, used to loneliness and the routine of the road, but tonight, something in the air seemed different. Suddenly, in the middle of the road, in the distance, he saw a figure. Bernie squinted his eyes to try to see more clearly, and as he got closer, he noticed a young woman, seemingly lost and alone, with long, dark hair that fell over her shoulders like a silk curtain. Her clothes seemed soaked by rain and wind, and her pale, ethereal appearance made her stand out in the darkness. Bernie, with his kind heart and her sense of responsibility, decided to stop and offer to help her. He opened the truck door, and the young woman got in gratefully. She had a beautiful face and physical attributes that were not lost on Bernie, who felt a little uncomfortable for a moment as he tried to keep his eyes on the road. "Where are you going?" Bernie asked in an attempt to break the silence that had fallen in the cabin. The young woman responded in a soft, melodic voice, "I'm going to Mexico, looking for answers and a new beginning." Her answers seemed vague but intriguing, and Bernie decided to keep talking to stay awake during the long night. The conversation continued casually, but Bernie sensed that something wasn't quite right. The young woman seemed to know a lot about him, details that he had never shared with her. She mentioned places he had visited, names of childhood friends, and other personal details that made him increasingly uneasy. How could she know all those things? As they continued along the deserted road, the young woman began to talk about deadly car accidents that had occurred in that very place. She mentioned horrifying details that only someone who had been present could know. Sweat began to bead on Bernie's forehead as he glanced at the young woman. Then what he feared the most happened. The young woman, in the middle of a sinister laugh, turned towards Bernie and her eyes lit up with a supernatural light. Her appearance changed before her eyes, revealing her true ghostly nature. Her skin turned even paler, and her eyes were like two burning lamps in the dark. Terrified, Bernie tried to stop the truck, but his shaking hands could barely hold the wheel. The young woman continued to laugh wickedly as she vanished into the darkness, leaving Bernie alone in his truck stopped in the middle of the road. Eternal minutes passed before Bernie regained control of his emotions and his truck. Finally gathering his courage, he continued on his journey until he reached his destination. Exhausted and terrified, he arrived at the drop-off point and related his strange experience to his trucker friends. Some took it lightly, thinking it was just a hallucination caused by road fatigue. But others shared similar stories of paranormal encounters on that very highway, making Bernie feel less alone in his experience. Since then, Bernie has never picked up a stranger on the road at night again. That night he had learned the lesson that sometimes appearances are deceptive, and in the dark world of the road, danger can lurk in the shadows, taking forms that defy rational explanation.